Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure they sent me up here because I'm one of the loudest in the board meetings, and I've got to kind of ring you all in. So as we're enjoying our dinner, as folks are funneling in from the exhibit hall, we've got a quick video. I know we've had several videos, but would love y'all to just check out the video and catch back here shortly.
When working with DPR, we're trying to help you as a customer see what's coming down the road for you that perhaps you're not yet seeing. You're an expert in your science. We're more focused around the spaces, and so we want to help you make sure that you clearly understand what that space's function will ultimately do for you and what its limitations may be. It's important that we're collaborating with designers, collaborating with end users, clearly making sure that those expected outcomes are understood.
As a client working with DPR, you get a contractor who truly cares about you, who truly wants to know what it is that you want and the outcome that you want from it. We want to get to know you and understand what our end goals are.
Some think it's about systems, mechanical, electrical, how does it function, systems. Others feel it's about fit and finish. Us understanding what that customer believes is what's most important, so that we're delivering their expectations for their intended purpose. There's a lot of different tools available to support us. Different versions of virtual design can be used to support all of that. We've got an array of experts in all of these areas that can be brought to a project to help deliver. Each project is unique.
It's more than just construction. You are taught about what the medicine does and who it is that it impacts. You are given stories about people who need these drugs. You're put on projects where you do a certain shutdown and you have to do it within a certain amount of time and within a certain amount of cost. Life sciences projects overall are super impactful because you're not only building great things, you're building great things that impact people's lives.
So the video is a great illustration at what the life science industry means to our company. All of us, we've heard from several folks, all of us are affected day to day by this industry. Our company, DPR, is on a mission to change the world, and what better way to do so than to build facilities, maintain facilities for folks who are in a world-changing industry. So, good afternoon. Again, I'm Adam Hoots. I'm with DPR Construction. DPR is a global construction company, specializes in high-tech laboratory, life science, clean room type space. We're founded in 1990 in the semiconductor industry, and there's a long story that I'd be more than willing to share with you at our booth. However, in 1990, Redwood City over pizza and wine, and it is a great story. We have 5 core markets that we focus on. Again, life science, healthcare, higher education, advanced technology, and commercial. And there's again a story to that, as with everything that we do. Company's built on 4 core values. The first, integrity. The second, enjoyment. The third, uniqueness. And 4th, ever forward. We're constantly looking for the next big thing to provide value to lean what we do. So put simply, we exist to build great things. We're a network of thought leaders, bullet smart people. Sam, I still owe you a definition for that, but we never hesitate to lend our experience to better humanity. That's what we do. That's why we're here. Our teams constantly drive to become integral and indispensable within our communities. We have a DPR Foundation that focuses on disadvantaged youth. We volunteer a lot of our time to that organization. We have a portfolio of clients that range from top 5 pharma companies to brand new startup companies. Again, that just speaks, we've got a wealth of experience. So we enjoy sharing collaboration. Again, I heard Bobby Hitt mention collaboration a bunch earlier. That's who we are. We love sharing info. That's how we all get better. So I'd like to invite everybody to our booth. We've got some great things going on. We've got real-time estimating. We've got folks, thought leaders there that can help you with site selection information. We got a virtual reality tour of a project we're doing for Duke School of Nursing, or just come get a cup or enjoy some conversation. Sam will tell you we've got some colorful conversations we'd love to have. Again, we're happy to be here. We're just super excited about all the energy here. This is our second conference. We've been board members for a year or so and have witnessed firsthand the energy that has just infected SCbio and has attracted all of these wonderful people here. It's unbelievable what, Sam Squared, as I call them, Sam Conduras and Sam Patrick, Aaron Ford, and the new addition of Morgan. Y'all are unstoppable, and we are so happy to be a part of it. So thank you for affording us this opportunity. Thanks for all that you do. And you guys are all nothing short of amazing. With that, I'm honored to be able to introduce Miss Stephanie Yarborough. Stephanie is our 2018 annual conference chair and has done quite an amazing job. She'll be leading our next panel discussion. Hope you enjoy lunch, and again, thank you all for being here.
Okay, so I ate a protein bar really quickly before I came up here, and I'm going to watch all of you enjoy eating this wonderful lunch. No, but it looks fantastic. And I was asked to remind everyone, we have a save the date card at each of your places for lunch. Apprenticeship Carolina, 3 dates coming up. So if you all will just make note of that. We know how important workforce is to economic development in South Carolina. So if you have time to be involved and support this effort, we would love for you to do so. We are going to have a really fun economic development panel during your lunch. Our panelists are going to answer some questions that I'm going to ask, and then we're going to open it up for some questions from you all. So at this time, I'd like the panelists to go ahead and come forward and join me up front. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to let our panelists one by one, if you will introduce yourselves to the audience so we can all have a little bit more background information on you. I think your backgrounds are incredibly diverse and very interesting, and they're going to make for a really interesting panel. So, Tom, if you would like to start.
Good afternoon now. My name is Tom McKenna. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Thorne Research. I grew up in the pharmaceutical industry and left that to actually go into, we'll call it the food industry in the U.S. As head of operations for a nutritional supplement company.
Russell Allen. I'm President and CEO of Georgia Research Alliance. GRA funds research and commercialization of that research at the universities in the state of Georgia. Prior to that, I spent almost 6 years with SCbio's sister organization in Georgia, Georgia Bio. And prior to that, about 7 years at BioFlorida, and spent a little bit of time in economic development in Atlanta as well, and then an IT background before all of that.
Hi, my name is Jason Rupp. I'm Executive Director of the Southeastern Medical Device Association, or SEMDA. I started my career in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. Left there, did some consulting, got an MBA, did a little more consulting, and then found myself at the Biotechnology Industry Organization, or BIO, which is obviously the big national organization. Was there 10 years. 2 years after that, I was at AdvaMed, which is the National Medical Device Association, for 2 years, and then I came to SEMDA almost 4 years ago. We're based in Atlanta, and glad to be here.
Hi, David Day here. As Bill Murray would said in one of the top 5 movies ever made, Stripes, I'm a mutt. And my people have been thrown out of every civilized country on the face of the earth. Originally from Alabama, from the low end of the gene pool, and did 16 years tech transfer at University of Florida, where we took the operation to number 3 in the country according to the Milken Institute. Helped start over 200 startup companies, now with a related organization to everybody here, SCbio, something we started 20 years ago for 7 states to accumulate enough deal flow, quantity, and quality to attract out-of-region investors. Our next conference, our 20th, comes up in 3 weeks in Atlanta, November 13th, 14th, where we'll have 50 to 60 investors on hand. Y'all just come see us.
Fantastic. So a little bit of background. As most of you know, when we work on economic development projects, we come in and negotiate incentives or support, typically at the state and the local level, for new projects moving into a state or existing companies are expanding within a state. So we have friends from neighbors to South Carolina with us on the panel, and also we have South Carolina represented on the panel. We compete heavily for these projects. So if someone's looking at South Carolina, they're probably looking at Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama. There's no secret to that. So it's friendly competition, but I think hearing these diverse perspectives will be really interesting for all of us. I wanted to start off by saying, in your experiences individually, what do you think, if you know it firsthand, or what do you hear, if you are one of our neighbors, that South Carolina does particularly well when it comes to economic development?
Want me to take that first?
Yeah.
Well, for us, who is a relative newcomer to the state, I would say 2 things. One, the state and local governments work hand in hand better than I have seen in any other state. For our company, we looked at all 50 states. I actually looked at 100 different opportunities in 8 states, and South Carolina was head and above any other state. So one, that. And the second is they genuinely hold your hand through the process. So great coordination and great hand-holding, at least for us.
Super. Thank you.
Well, having not lived in the state, I haven't experienced firsthand, but I do know that from projects that I've seen over the years, having, as I mentioned, I spent a bit of time in economic development in Atlanta, and the story here is quality of life. I think that's, not that that's not the story elsewhere, but I think what we have found in the life sciences industry in particular is executives are going to locate companies where they want to be, where they want to live, where they want to raise their families. And so, catalyzing that and making that more accessible for life sciences as well as any other industry are what we see drive those successes.
Do you want to just go? Skip me. No, I'm joking. So, as some of you who are familiar with SCbio know, this year we had our annual conference. SCbio had our annual conference in Greenville. And so the first thing I'd say is, no offense to Charlestonians, my dad lives here, but you made Greenville. And what a wonderful, place and for innovation and everything that's going on there. But, when we were preparing for the conference this year, obviously manufacturing came up, and I think this plays on to what Russell is saying, is the quality of life and being able to be here, much less expensive than other areas with manufacturing. And I think that obviously with the new companies that are coming here to the state is a big part of it. So I think I really applaud that. And with MedTech, there's a lot of high-tech manufacturing, and with BMW and Boeing, certainly there's a lot of skilled workers here that will be able to take advantage of that as MedTech companies come, which I hope they do.
With my principal experience being in Florida in the last 16 years, obviously South Carolina is head and shoulders above a lot of people in manufacturing. And having been to this conference last year and this year, I know there's amongst the economic development people, there's a fair amount of pride in poaching companies out of Florida. Thanks very much for that. In the life sciences industry in the Southeast, and my organization represents 7 states from Virginia through the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee. there's about a $10 to $12 billion research space in the Southeast, depends on how you count it. And manufacturing is a big driver of innovation and industry and employment. And then for life sciences, a lot of it comes out of the universities and the research institutions. And so for Carolina, South Carolina, you got some work still left to do there. Your size of your institutions is on par with some of the other states in the region, Tennessee and Alabama, not quite yet on par with the Georgias and Floridas and North Carolinas. And so you've got some work to do.
Absolutely. I'll tell you all a funny story. Talking about the quality of life, we had one of our companies that now calls South Carolina home that is not, they came over from overseas, and last year they were kind enough to invite me to have Easter dinner with the executive team and their families. And they said they were going to plan a wonderful South Carolina Easter dinner because they said everyone had been so hospitable and they were so in love with the lifestyle and how friendly everyone had been. So they said, can you come over and join us? I said, I'd be delighted to. And they said, we're planning the menu and everything. It's going to be a South Carolina menu. I wasn't sure exactly what that would be. So I walked in. They were blaring Michael Jackson music because they said that's what people in America listen to, right, on holidays. And I said, absolutely. And then we proceeded to sit down for Easter dinner, and we had Mexican food for lunch, and then they served everyone Coca-Cola because they said everyone in the United States drinks soft drinks. So, and they said, and they were dead serious, and they said, how did we do? Did we plan a South Carolina holiday meal? And I said, I don't know that it's exactly what I'm used to, but I have to tell you, it's more fun than any holiday meal that I've ever had in my family as far as the music and the food that was served, and certainly the company. So I do think there's a lot to be said about quality of life and the people in South Carolina. I'm going to flip that on its head, though, and this will be particularly interesting for those of you with experience in Florida, Georgia, and then Tom, you have so much experience in other states when you were doing your site selection process. What do you think South Carolina could do better? I mean, we know we have strong competitors in North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, because we are typically competing against other states in the Southeast when we're trying to land a project. What, in your opinion, could we be doing better? Because that's what we all need to hear, so we need to know how we can support our companies better.
Yeah, what I would say is I think the state does a great job on incentives. What we, at least personally, could use more help with and could have used more help with is essentially acquiring human capital in terms of staffing, or again, as I call it, the war for talent. The state was very helpful there. I would say if the state could figure out, and the local communities could figure out even to be more helpful there, it would be huge for companies coming in like ours that are essentially hiring 2 to 1 for folks that they're bringing in.
We find the same issue in Georgia. We have the same issue in Florida. Human capital and capital. Those two issues, funding and workforce, are going to rise to the top of everyone's list of what they need. And in this industry, that's hard to come by. It's a relatively small industry. So even if you are incentivizing and recruiting manufacturing operations, it's most likely going to be much smaller in number than other traditional industries here. Automotive, or aerospace, these employ typically more people. So I would also say incentivizing, finding a way to translate the research into companies and support the entrepreneurial environment. When I was at the Metro Atlanta Chamber, I would go into the CEO's office and he'd say, well, how many jobs are in the pipeline here? And I said, well, not many. First of all, the companies that we're talking to have 10 people. And secondly, they're asking questions about the infrastructure. They're asking questions about the ecosystem. How will, if we do come here, things don't work out, where do people go next? And this is, again, a common concern. And so we said we really have to focus on that ecosystem. And, people use the analogy a lot of times of baking a cake, right? They get all of the ingredients together first, then you can bake the cake. And I kind of say, at least in Georgia, we're at the stage where, okay, I think we've got the ingredients. Maybe it's time to start warming up the oven. We still haven't fully baked the cake. We have a lot of issues to cover, and I'd say the same issues that we're facing are the ones that South Carolina can address.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have an economic development background, but the one thing, particularly from my experience at Bio, I would say is presence. Be present outside the state. Georgia, and Russell could say if this investment was worth it to them, but Georgia spent a lot of money to sponsor the Biotechnology Industry Organization conference, that Jim represents, and to really talk about what's available. I mean, in South Carolina, with the Greenville Tech and CMI, is that right? The manufacturing school there, and everything going on in Greenville, Clemson, here at MUSC. There's a lot of opportunity, but if you're not present, big presence in some ways, no one's going to know. And so, and David and I both representing regional organizations, we're trying to sell what's going on in the whole region, and so that helps a little bit. But also being present at those national events is crucial.
Well, there are 5 things, and you can't not do any one of them. You got to build the research base. You've got to have people who are experienced and good at doing the business, whether it's tech transfer, lawyers, accountants. You've got to build facilities. You've got to have incubators. You've got to have second stage growth space. You've got to have research parks. You got to have money, capital inside the university for proof of principle, early stage seed capital, venture capital. If you can fund them through the B round, you'll have them and you'll hold them. And then management. You've got to have experience, the jockeys. And the jockeys don't reside here. They reside in Boston and San Francisco. So you're going to have to be used to having companies that have 2 offices, a South Carolina office and a Boston office, because you'll have some C-suite people in Boston, and you'll have the multitude of the jobs here. But you ask for one thing. If there's any one thing, it's capital. It's investment capital. When you look around the Southeast, you've got a little seed fund at the University of Virginia. North Carolina's got 2, 3 venture capitals and some seed groups. Tennessee's got 1 investment capital group, nothing in Alabama. Florida has got a couple of seed groups, but no 1 venture capital group. There's a paucity of it in the region. You can not only help grow your own companies, but companies will move here from Indiana, parts outside of South Carolina, if they have a way to get it investment capital. We found that out in Florida. We had a program, a matching capital program, where the investment decisions were not made by pointy-headed bureaucrats who can't park a bicycle straight, but were made by a volunteer group of venture capitalists. And it worked well. At last count, for every $1 of state money is $22 of private money have gone into these companies, and people have moved to Florida to take advantage of that program, investment capital.
Thank you, that's very helpful. We're constantly monitoring in South Carolina what other states are doing so we know what we can do better. I think we've done an exceptionally good job in South Carolina. We're known as a state that makes things. We make airplanes, we make cars, we do that really well. We're trying to build the life sciences industry in South Carolina, and that's why we're all here today. So these words of wisdom are really important to us. We've proven in South Carolina we can do it and do a beautiful job once we get our arms around it, and I think we're really getting there in the life sciences space. We hear from companies that some of the training programs in North Carolina and in Georgia may be superior to what is offered in South Carolina to help build the workforce, that perhaps if we don't have the skills, we can get our people the skills. Can you talk to what may be working really well in those neighboring states that we could learn from and try to emulate that in South Carolina?
Well, I can't talk to the other states, but I can talk to what we've learned here. One, with the state-sponsored programs, for example, through Ready SC, while there's a lot of energy wanting to be behind that, there's still room for growth in understanding unique manufacturing processes and R&D. So I think having perhaps a greater level of knowledge in those two areas, particularly for the life sciences, would be helpful. Certainly would have been even more helpful for our company. It wasn't for a lack of trying. It was, I think, for a lack of knowing. Would be my and our takeaways on round one on that.
Okay.
In Georgia, it's a program called Quick Start, and the largest life science recruitment in the state to date originally was Baxter. It's now Shire. Plasma manufacturing site that employs now about 1,000 people, and when fully operational will employ close to 2,000 people. And it wasn't the cash incentives or the land that really sealed the deal, if you will, for Baxter. It was training. So the state Quick Start program is specifically for manufacturing, any manufacturing really. So they've worked with Kia, they've worked with, in life sciences with Alcon, and now Baxter and many other industries. What's unique in this particular case, at the site for Baxter, they built the Georgia Bioscience Training Center. And so all of the training for their employees goes through a dedicated site that is basically a miniature scaled version of their entire manufacturing operation. But that now will be available to other companies to use after now Shire fully employs their people. And so I think that program for manufacturing is certainly the top incentive in Georgia. And Georgia Bio, my prior organization, the SCbio equivalent, has the Georgia BioEd Institute, and many of the state bio associations have education arms or sister organizations. And the focus for the Georgia BioEd Institute for this coming year is to roll out a statewide biomanufacturing training program for high schools around the state.
That's fantastic.
And that basically the program trains teachers and then gives the teachers supplies. The members of Georgia Bio donate supplies and equipment, and then those supplies are put into kits for teachers to take into their high school classrooms. So those two programs, I think, are most successful.
I'm not familiar enough, so I'll kick it to David if he. David always has something to say, even if it's a lie.
Well, that's right. Thank you, Jason, for recognizing that. Lying is like any other skill. If you don't practice it, you won't be any good at it.
Right.
And I think we're all a bit distracted as we see the food going out, because I'm so hungry. In Florida, one thing we were doing well is we were creating a number of biotech jobs in a place that the third biggest cluster in Florida is a tiny little town just north of University of Florida, Alachua, Florida, although the locals call it Alachua. I don't know why. And but they were struggling to have employees. We had a 2-year community college, which is now a 4-year community college. That had a biotech technician training program, and all of those graduates were being consumed when they came out, and the employer said, we need more, and so we took a look at the problem. The kids in the schools never imagined that those jobs were out there. They might think about being a teacher or an engineer or a firefighter or something, but not a biotech technician, and come out starting at $40,000 a year and going up from there. And so we started an institution of that, but found out that we had to go back to the 8th grade to get started with them so that they had the imagination. And sometimes earlier, have the 2nd, 3rd graders come out and tour the biotech incubator. So you got to start early, and you got to out-compete, have them imagine what's going to be there and what's available, and compete for their interest. Another thing is that we thought that when we were successful in recruiting companies to come from out of state, to come into the state, and if we located them close to the universities, they would be able to hire away or hire graduates when they first came out, especially in the computer science area, and that applies to everything, including bio. And what we found is a lot of the kids were ready to go to the West Coast. They were ready to go to San Jose and go to the Valley and work. And so while our companies recruited some of them, they still had to recruit others to move in. And on that recruiting them to move in, you go out to various universities wherever they are and start working on them while they're juniors. It takes 2 years for a company, at least 2 years for a company to bring someone in and get them up to speed. And so a lot of companies would start identify kids in the junior year and prep them up. And they would come from all over the place. For a good job, they knew they were going to have it. It's a great thing to do. And the final thing is that while there are a lot of big companies out there, the amount of people working for big companies now and working for the same company all of their lives is just not like it was when my dad was around. The universities who help create startups, they don't do so because they want to necessarily, but because they have to. And a lot of, I'm rambling slightly, but I got a point here. The university tech transfer offices are now finding about 60% of their business is startup business. So the bottom line on this, yes, you may hope to get a big job that lasts for the rest of your life with a large company, but it's a very viable opportunity, and it helps create jobs for people who aren't finding them to create your own job, to get involved in a startup before you've got a family and before you've got financial commitments. And then after you've been to the West Coast and you've already raised the children, to come back to the place that you love, where the Spanish moss it grows on you kind of like the Spanish moss does. So let's not forget startups as a way of part of the whole job creation training picture.
And we're hearing from a lot of our companies, particularly those based in Europe, that we should look and learn more at the models that they use back home with apprenticeship models, with a whole different system than the way we have traditionally approached education in the United States. And I know in South Carolina we're making a real concerted effort to work with our school children at a very young age. It's not necessarily you will go to school and then you'll go to college and then you go to graduate school, then you'll figure it out somewhere along the way. We need to be more engaging and involved in introducing our younger school children to companies so they have a completely different understanding of what their educational path may look like and their work path may look like.
It's called brainwashing.
Brainwashing. That's another way to put it.
Better than brain drain, right? That's what we suffer from that. And what David's second point there on connecting the existing industry with those kids. Let them know about the opportunities in your state. I'm guessing you have that problem here. We have it in as David said, in Florida and in Georgia. Again, we call it the brain drain. So we have these great research universities, excellent programs. Can't really ask a whole lot more of what's happening at the research level, and then they go to Boston and Silicon Valley, and then we have to recruit from Boston and Silicon Valley, and it just seems like, wait, why is that happening? So we've got to do a better job of connecting academia and industry.
I agree. Next question. A lot of the companies we work with say, they may be interested in starting a pharmaceutical company in the southeastern portion of the United States. They don't identify South Carolina, or when I get them, that's often the conversation. We have a customer, or we have a demand, so we need to be in the southeast. And so we'll start helping identify cities, and they'll say, where is that? Is that North Carolina, Georgia? They may be based in Germany. They're not that familiar. I think some people may think that companies come in saying, I want to be in South Carolina, and so what does this look like? Can you tell us from your experience, is it more regional, geographical, or are they coming in to you expressing state-specific goals as far as where they want to locate?
I think it's more collaboration-based. Companies in our industry don't work alone, right? I don't know any biotech product that was developed, in a silo, if you will, within a company, and they never partnered with anybody, they never worked with a university. It just doesn't happen. So usually it's some collaboration that's attracting them to Georgia or to South Carolina. So find if you can find the research connection between what the company is working on and one or more of the universities or other companies in the area, I think that's really going to drive quite a bit of that activity. And whether it's South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, it doesn't matter as much in that case.
Yeah, and interesting that you say that. One of SEMDA's board members is from J.P. Morgan, and he's new to the position, and he basically covers for J.P. Morgan the Southeast. And if you look at J.P. Morgan's other 11 or 12 regions, one region is Boston, and one region is California, right? And so J.P. Morgan, and he said this to us when we were talking in discussions. He spoke this year when we were talking to him. He said investors from outside the Southeast, they don't look to invest when they're looking to invest in South Carolina or Tennessee or Georgia. They're not thinking South Carolina, Tennessee, or Georgia. They're thinking the Southeast. They want to invest in the Southeast. And I've had discussions with venture capital in San Francisco, and they say, there's too much competition in San Francisco. We can't get all the investments that we want in here, so we're looking outside, and the Southeast is one of those, but we have no idea what's going on. There's so many pockets of innovation, but they can't cover them all. Ibrahim Badejo, who I'm sure has spoken at this event before with Johnson & Johnson, he said the same thing. He said, I can go to Atlanta and visit Emory, Georgia Tech. I can see everything going on in the state. Take a week and do that. I can do the same in South Carolina. I can go to the technical colleges, and I can go to Clemson and MUSC. What I can't do is Atlanta and South Carolina and Nashville and Memphis in Tennessee and Birmingham with UAB and what's going on in Huntsville and Florida. You could do a month in Florida, right? So can't do them all in 1 year. So, and he's adamant, and he's pushed us really hard as a board and as an organization to really bring together the region. And so one of the things that SEMDA's working on, and I know David with Souytheast Bio has this going as well, is we've formed a MedTech Alliance. So the 6 states, talking to Virginia as well, but Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee, we formed the MedTech Alliance. And the goal of this is to really highlight the best and as much as we possibly can what's going on in the Southeast, not for us, but for the folks in Boston and San Francisco and around the country, and for that matter, around the world. So we want to bring the best together in one place at the SEMDA conference on MedTech. And I will, David made a point earlier on the 5 things. I have 4, so we need to compare notes. But anyway, 4.5, yeah. Yeah, no question, the workforce is a challenge. I think workforce is better than funding, the funding side. If you look at the Southeast, NIH grants, R&D, and I'm talking the full industry, biotech and medtech. NIH grants, R&D funding, number of companies, patents coming out of the universities and the companies, the total companies, all of those are 15 to 20% of the national total. Venture funds are 7%. So there's a disconnect. The innovation is happening. Good stuff is happening. And the money just, I don't know if they can't find it or what it is, but there's a challenge. And I think that, for me at SEMDA, I think we've not done our job, right? I mean, a big part of what we do is an investor conference. We haven't done our job. And so how do we do that better? And I think the collaboration that Russell said, we're not going to get there without everyone working together. And it's going to be the state and regional organizations and the state research organizations like SCRA, Georgia Research Alliance, Launch Tennessee, Southern Research in Alabama, we're all working together. The economic development groups, it's hard, right? Because your job, if you're from South Carolina Economic Development, is South Carolina, right? And so saying, well, we're going to support a regional group so they might go to Georgia, I get it, but there has to be a way, and we're going to work through it, and we want everybody to be part of this solution to get the money that if money comes and companies are starting, the workforce will grow, South Carolina grows, Georgia grows, Tennessee grows, we'll all grow, and then we'll let, the Commerce departments fight over it in the end. But we got to grow first, all right? We got to get the money first and the people first, and then we can create world-class recognition. There's already world-class research. Now we can create that world-class recognition of what's going on, and that's my goal.
I wish I could say I had nothing to add to that. Or maybe Stephanie wishes I could. I don't think I can say it better.
Thank you.
SCbio and Souytheast Bio are two examples that are not repeated elsewhere in the country.
Right.
The fact that in the Southeast we work well together, we like each other, we support each other is unusual. There's not a Northeast Bio and there's not a Midwest Medical Device Association. These are Southeastern because of our cultures here. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina doesn't have a corner on the market on quality of life. There are others that have quality of life also. But it's the smart people that we're competing for. Smart people like to work with other smart people. They like to know that if this company craps out, there's one across the street they can go to work for. And so whoever captures a disproportionate share of the smart people is going to win the game going forward. We can no longer compete on the basis of low cost. That's out the window. We can only compete on complexity, the complexity of our minds and the complexity of our hands. You're doing a great job of that in manufacturing. One example on recruiting a pharmaceutical company I've got is when I was in Birmingham, Alabama, or Birmingham at UAB, which is the University of Alabama at Birmingham, a $500 million a year now research university. Some people say it's the university that ate Birmingham, but that's another matter altogether. We decided we wanted to recruit a pharmaceutical company to come to Birmingham, Alabama. And so we inventoried our assets, we put our pitch together, we went on the road, and they all said no. They said, you don't have the workforce to support what we need. Develop the workforce and come back to see us. And we looked at each other, how do we develop the workforce? And what we found, our advice from around the country was, once again, go back to the startup economy, start building these companies locally. It's Flip Wilson example. You're too young to remember Flip Wilson, but he said you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And so you got to build the economy, build the jobs, build the infrastructure before you can get one of those to come to your town. What we did find out is we had a lot of pharmacists, and so we got a big pharmacy fill operation there. That's the answer on that one.
Thank you. We have a few minutes left. I'd like to take some questions from you all. If you have some that you would like to ask our panel, I'm sure you do. Yes.
I'm Amy Salzhauer from Future Capital. So we are in this venture fund that would invest in South Carolina and startup. And I totally agree with what you have to say. For the few venture capitalists that are here, it's actually a great market because there's so little competition for capital. So right now I'm out raising my second fund. It's a $100 million fund. And the investors I'm talking to are in New York, they're in Japan, they're in California. So how can we bring together, we all know we need more capital. And, I keep pitching, and venture capital is local, right? So you do need to have board members who are in place who will serve on those boards. I keep preaching across the state that I think one of the strengths of South Carolina is that we have an incredible set of executive talent that can fill those board seats. But how can we bring the corporations, state actors together to actually fund the capital? That's what we all have.
Well, my answer would be, well, let's do it, right? I mean, I've been at SCbio for almost 4 years, and when I got here, everybody said, well, we all know we need to work together. And it ends there. And so, this alliance, I think that there's opportunities for Souytheast Bio and SCbio to partner and work together on some things. I think there just needs to be that will. Everyone sees that there's, I don't even want to call it a challenge because it is an opportunity. There is a huge opportunity. Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, Halyard, all on my board, they talk about we love what you're doing on some things regionally, and we want to continue to support this. We need more of it. And I think that coming together and building it, even like really creating a joint venture with the states and, whomever, to build that event that gets recognized nationally and internationally. And I'm talking about one event, but it goes from there. You have one event that's the cornerstone, if you will, but from there it builds out through the years. You have other things, databases of the companies and technologies coming out of in companies, but then also the universities. It's just going to take a will and everyone to get together and say let's get it done. We're taking baby steps with the MedTech Alliance we're doing. And this year, or in 2019, SCbio has always had member companies. And this has been not super contentious, but a point of contention with the state groups because we compete. So in 2019, we are eliminating our membership. And what we're going to do is South Carolina bio members are members of SCbio. So when we have an event, you'll get those discounts. And so we're eliminating that competition. And so, everybody's competing for sponsors, but, we can work through that. So that's one step we're taking to take that alliance to that next level. What's it going to look like in 2 or 3 years? I don't know, but that's where we need that input and that will to say, okay, we're not just South Carolina. We can be a part of something bigger. Well,
I've got a 3-part answer for you that involves the Beatles, the Bible, and the Yankees. So Jason, Come Together was a great song, yes. Lennon and McCartney. Yay. Not a terribly churchy guy, although my parents had me there every time the doors were open when I was a kid raised Southern Baptist. But I believe it's something like Mark 3:28. Jesus said, a prophet is without honor in their homeland. Yeah. In your backyard, people don't respect you. And so the best way to earn that respect is to go out, even though you don't want to, and go get the funding from the pension funds, from New York, from Boston, from wherever the pension funds are. Be a success. Then you can employ the 7 deadly sins, that of envy. When people see you successful and see you making money, the locals will want in on it. And I've done that in any number of ways, any number of times. But the last point, the Yankees part, is the University of Michigan did something interesting that you might want to think about. They did this with their endowment. Whenever they had a startup company come out of Michigan, I think who has finally figured out how to play football, that if they had venture investors and there was a lead on an A-round venture deal, they would join in, the endowment would join in that deal. Same thing here is if you put the deal together on a South Carolina company of some type or the other, then you go out to the constituents and maybe you get them to agree ahead of time. If I put skin in this, you'll put skin in this too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say agree with him with David on the going out, right? Like I mentioned, the investor from San Francisco, they're saturated. They want to invest here, but I can only do so much. If it's to tell there's 600-800 companies here in the Southeast, probably maybe more. I don't remember exactly, but I don't know them all. He can't figure them all out either. So. The companies have to get out there at the investor meetings outside the region. I think that's a big part of it. And then that follow-on capital will come and the company will grow and their employees and you can make more. So.
What we've done in the last year is we invest in Boston and we invest here. And there are big advantages for the Boston companies to move here. And we've started doing that and looking at the GHS guys. Because people audition for wet lab space in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So we really have an advantage here. You can build that pipeline. But venture capital is very local. It's naive to think that, and I'm not saying that you're naive, but outside investors, right? They need a local lead. Yeah. it's also naive for us to think that the New York and Japanese investors are going to have the same values of trying to help move things to South Carolina as we would have if our investor base was really coming from South Carolina.
I think that speaks to the matching opportunities that these guys mentioned. I mean, when I first started working with this industry, the story was always about how do we convince the VC firms to move to Georgia or to move to Florida or open up shop in our states, and it wasn't working. It just like trying to recruit the big pharma companies wasn't working either. But good companies can attract capital. We found that out wherever the capital may be. So if they have good technology, good management, and good IP, then they're going to be attractive to venture capitalists. But your point is well taken, in that the state and the communities have to commit too. So it's not. Georgia Research Alliance was formed for the purpose of improving the research base and then commercializing that research. When I interviewed for the job, I told the search committee, I said, we have the wrong name of this organization. It's not the Georgia Research Alliance, it's the Georgia Research and Commercialization Alliance, because it's all about taking that research out and forming companies and helping those companies to succeed. And then those good companies, if we help them, especially at the early stage, then they'll attract the venture capital later on. So I think state grant programs, loan programs are really important. Matching, SBIR matching grant programs. We don't have that right now in Georgia, and I'm going to fight for that. 36 states, I think, have SBIR matching grant programs, and we're one that doesn't. I'm not sure about South Carolina. But those programs work, and that goes to one of my earlier points about supporting that entrepreneurial environment, and then it grows. It will grow over time, and the larger companies will come in. Big pharma will come in. Maybe they won't relocate their manufacturing site from Pennsylvania or New Jersey, but they'll come in with an innovation center, and they'll come in with a J Labs or some other kind of support to your overall industry.
Last question, Tom, on the industry side, from a company that has chosen South Carolina as its home, what is the one thing that we can do in South Carolina to ensure that we continue to support Thorne research the best that we can? And whether that's training or workforce initiatives or something different, I think it would be interesting to hear from the private employer side.
Thanks for the question. My answer to that is ultimately it's the company's responsibility to make themselves successful. What I think the state's doing a good job with, and the various associations, including SCbio, is bringing together people to help companies do better, whether it's to recruit talent, whether it's to network and capitalize on other opportunities from R&D to whatever. I view that the state's working very hard, and those within the state and across the states are working really hard for that. And that was a big draw for us versus other states and other regions. Just a quick aside too, for the venture capital raise in New York and Boston, from somebody who's raised money to build a new facility as well as to recapitalize the company. The one thing that we've found very successful in doing, raising money, is essentially to bring friends. And so I would encourage you to capitalize on the associations and the companies in the area to basically help you sell others to bring money in. Because quite frankly, we did that with 2 big Japanese firms with a lot of friends, and a couple of companies in New York as well.
Wonderful. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. I learned a lot. Yes, one last comment?
One thing,
Yes.
look around you, look at each other. You're a big group, you're a great group, you're winning. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.